Hello, Brenda Wood, and back to do another segment on incarceration. This is Travis George, and he is a current police officer, and he's been doing this for many years. So I'm going to turn it over to him and let him explain a little bit about his background and what he's done in the past and what he's doing now.
So I started in police work in 1995, attended the Regional Police Academy through Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. I worked for the city of Belton for 22 years. Prior to Belton, I did work a year with the Airport Police Division out of Kansas City. In my career in Belton, I worked street, working night shift, day shift, evening shift. 1998, I was promoted to canine handler, so I handled a police dog, a German Shepherd, for 9 years. And during that time, I was promoted to assistant shift supervisor. I was a corporal, so when the sergeant was not working, then I was in charge of the shift. Working the street primarily the majority of my career, 18 years. In 2006, I was promoted to sergeant, retired my dog, and then I was a road supervisor, working shift work. Had a crew of 7 officers and did that until 2015. In 2015, I was promoted to police lieutenant, and I was in charge and oversaw all of our uniform patrol division, to include our training division and our traffic unit. From there, I moved over to investigations. I was in charge of our narcotics, general case, general crimes, detectives, our victim services, court personnel, records in courts. And then in 2018, I took early retirement and left to be a school resource officer full-time in the Blue Valley School District.
Awesome.
We have a police department within our district, and I also coach middle school football, high school wrestling, and high school baseball.
Okay.
So we pride ourselves and build our mission is around building relationships. And with that being said, traditional law enforcement's reactionary. So everything that we do, we are responding to something that took place and trying to put the pieces back together, so to speak. In the schools, it's a different approach. It's all about education. It's about crime prevention. It's about mental health awareness. And so we're trying to build into the lives of kids to help them be better humans as they grow and eventually have a life of their own outside of living with their mom and dad. So that is our goal, and our mission is to do that and to be impactful in the lives of kids. So
I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So and I really particularly enjoy that on the athletic field too.
So walk me through what it's like to be a cop. Just give me a general day.
So one thing about police work, probably as opposed to any career, is you just can never be complacent with anything you do. So you may be sitting and typing a report, trying to get caught up on your shift, and an armed robbery comes out. You have to stop everything you're doing, and you have to turn on your heightened sense of awareness, your situational awareness, and immediately go into protect mode, go into safety mode, go into life-saving mode, and literally take your brain from being calm and analytical to being emotionally responsive but under control. And that is a up and down roller coaster of emotion day in and day out. You have to set aside things when you're trying to get a task finished. You may have to be called to do something and completely set that task aside, not knowing when you're going to get back to that task.
So you didn't have a regular 8-hour day?
No. So you have to constantly balance the emotional fatigue with the emotional wellness, having time to set that aside for your family and your children, and not letting it affect you on a personal level, because you always meet most people on their worst day or one of their worst days. And when you meet people on their worst day, you have to learn how to, I don't want to say robot, but you have to learn how to be compassionate and empathetic even when you don't feel like it, because that negative energy that you experience around people and that you take on over the course of a career, you can cause micro impact on your psyche, your emotional well-being, kind of like they talk about PTSD, but PTSD with micro impact. So a serviceman might go overseas and spend a year overseas and come back with PTSD. they tour. Their tour is a year, 2 years. We have a tour that's a lifetime. That's all day, every day. And so officers that have been in the job experience some real emotional fatigue. After usually 10 years, you start seeing some significant impact if you don't deal with it properly.
You said you dealt in narcotics. What was it like dealing with addicts?
I didn't specifically work undercover or anything like that. I just oversaw the unit. Of course, I did it with a dog too, as a canine handler. But you know, we always say that 10% of the people cause 90% of the problems.
Mm-hmm.
So you have recurring offenders that you deal with time and time again, and usually the majority of the situations we dealt with that were volatile, rapidly evolving, changing, dynamic in flow, had surrounded some way around narcotics offenses of some sort. Whether you're in a high-speed chase with a stolen car, or you're dealing with an armed robbery, or you're dealing with a rapidly evolving disturbance. There's always a component that always ties that together, and usually evolves around substance abuse of some sort.
What's the worst thing you've seen as a cop?
Probably some pretty bad traffic accidents that resulted in fatalities that really hit you, especially when you're dealing with kids that might have been killed in a traffic accident. A lot of times, any type of child abuse is always very impactful, especially when you have kids of your own. Any homicide scenes, suicide scenes, or there's a lot of suicide scenes that I still have in my head.
I couldn't even imagine that.
So a lot of them, and suicide is very, very common. I mean, I would say probably once a week we had a completed suicide that we dealt with.
Oh my, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, not necessarily me that I saw, but the department dealt with. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
have you ever had to arrest a friend?
no, I haven't. I've had to arrest maybe if I think back, I've had to arrest some maybe acquaintances, but maybe a close friend. No, not that I recall.
I know you're not in corrections, so I can't really ask you stuff about that, but I can ask your opinion on it as being a cop. When we spoke earlier, we had mentioned, I talked to you about people who make mistakes, and you said that the police force sometimes would look over people who had a mistake in their past, maybe not a bad one, but would just forget about them because they wanted the perfect candidate. And you said there was a lot of good people that had made mistakes that even the police had overlooked. So what is your viewpoint on just incarceration in general?
Well, I mean, everybody makes mistakes. We're human. We're going to, some mistakes are bigger than others. I mean, you hear the cliche all the time of, history tends to repeat itself, right? And there's some truth to that. But
there is.
I think that people that truly spend time self-reflecting and looking back at their past and identifying things that they wish they wouldn't have done and take corrective action to make improvements and become better. Everybody deserves that opportunity. We hear the saying all the time, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yes.
There's a lot of truth in that.
There absolutely is.
So I believe that everybody should have the opportunity. There's a faith component too. I think you see a lot of people, particularly in prison, you see a lot of stories and there's movies about people that have really turned their life around through faith. And I think that's neat. I like hearing stories like that. And I think there's a great component to that because when you have a lot of time to be alone and a lot of time to think, you have a lot of time to really self-reflect. And you go back and look at your life and see, the mistakes that you made and things and it can't hurt to try it a different way. So let's try it a different way and see what happens. And I've seen some great stories of people that have turned their life around through faith and come out of prison and done amazing things.
And that's good. So you do believe in second chances and people can change.
Absolutely.
Yes. There's there's a lot of negativity going on right now with the perception of police and all the things that's going on with COVID and the riots but police are necessary. They're absolutely necessary because they're the first ones you're going to call when you need help. And unfortunately, even those that go to jail might need the police.
Well, we've always been told we're somebody's best friend and somebody's worst enemy all on the same day.
Yes.
So, again, there's things that in any career field, because it is a career field, but it's a life choice, and in that life choice, you're going to learn your perception about the world through the eyes of a police officer, through the eyes of somebody in the military, especially somebody that's been in active combat, it is just different because most people don't see the things that we've seen.
Right.
And they don't understand the hate and the ugliness of the world. And when you see that all day, every day, it really does shape your perception and what's important, you know?
How is that on a relationship, being a cop? Just the stress,
you
the
have
hours?
you have to take an active, you have to be active and intentional about your choices, about how you choose to be. I used to think that the cop circle was just that we were a tight circle, that I could only have friends that were cops because we only understood each other the same way. But as I got older and progressed in my career, I didn't believe that. I felt that it was important to have relationships with people outside of police work because I think it helped my perspective, it helped my health, my emotional healthiness. And really, as I'm transitioning out of police work completely after 26 years, I've been on this networking journey of meeting people that are in a different line of work than police work, that are in the business world, that are in the corporate world, that are in the nonprofits. And it's just been the perspective that I've gained from some of these individuals and the tools I guess I've acquired have been amazing. And then people have had some great takeaways from me. Oh, I never thought of it that way.
And that's probably very true.
Police officers.
Yes.
So it's really been an educational journey for me.
So tell me what's going on with these kids. How do you help somebody that's going down the wrong path that might be able to influence them on staying out of prison one day?
Well, people, first of all, I'm going to go back to the family because family structure is very important, what you witness at home. And that's when your mind and your brain is being created, being formed, and neural pathways are connecting, especially between the ages of about 11 and 14. So if you're having negative experiences at home that you're witnessing, and of course, if you're having negative experiences with friends as a kid growing up, then those negative experiences are going to make a longer impression on you because of your developing brain. And so we are living in an instant gratification world. So these kids and the use of their telephones and what they see on their cell phones and on social media. I mean, I know we talk about it till we're blue in the face, but I don't think people have any idea how impactful it is, because the reality of what they see on social media is the reality that they try to live their life, and it's just not practical.
That's true. People don't realize that reality TV is still a show.
Communication is essential. Good communication and being able to be around people that can pour into you and that can love you and walk through things with you. In my role now with kids, and I mean, we have I live in a very affluent, or work in a very affluent school district, so our kids are good kids, but they still have their own struggles.
Sure.
Their expectations are higher. Sometimes their parents expect a lot more of them that's reasonable and feasible, as opposed to coming from maybe a blue collar or low income area when they go home at the end of the day and they may not have a meal, or they see their parents using illegal substances. So you just have there's always dynamics that are going to be changing. So
I interviewed a gal today, and it's interesting that you said high speed chases and stuff, because that's exactly what she went down for. A stolen car and drugs and high speed chase into dad. So, but she talked about her background and what her life was like as a teenager and the negative things that impacted her choices and the decisions that she was making that landed her in prison. And so I can see that being very true, what you were just saying. So now you are working with kids, and you said that your district has a police force within it. So still doing police work, but you said you're transitioning out. So you are getting ready to...
So I can mention I've been on kind of a networking journey. So I've just been trying to learn from people that are in the business community, and really just putting forth a lot of effort into trying to build relationships with people. And if that turns into another opportunity outside of police work, then that's great. I do some work on the side with financial services right now, and all through networking.
So if people are interested in that, they can contact you?
Yes, that's correct. So creative planning is who I work for. So, but we'll see where it goes. I have to learn to not be in a hurry and be patient, and see what happens. So,
and you would welcome felons for that?
If you have at least $50,000 in investments.
Some might. You never know. You never know. Do you foresee things changing in the future with cell phones and social media and
No.
no?
Mm-mm. I don't think so. I think it's going to get faster. I think it's going to be technology's changing by the minute.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we're headed in a direction that's going to see. I mean, you're going to see individual improvements on an individual basis,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're going to see people make huge changes and have huge impact, and really, but overall, from a societal standpoint, from the cloud view, I don't know that we're going to be heading in the right direction.
Do you think
History tends to repeat itself?
exactly.
I'll say that again.
Do you think that it's going to make it easier for people to commit crimes?
Well, I mean, traditionally, when I first started in police work, it's interesting. It's a great question because we used to take the type of reports we take, or theft reports we take, where somebody break into a car in the middle of the night, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and steal our car stereo. Well, it's easier to misappropriate and do crime online because it's easier to get to, it's more efficient. It's easier to stay under the radar, and it's easier not to get caught.
Mm-hmm.
And so why not go the easier route? That's why you see all the internet scams that you see, and people scamming people out of money as
Mm-hmm.
a traditional theft and pickpocketing and those kind of
Right.
things. You just don't see those things anymore because criminals are going to evolve just like society
Anybody else?
does.
Yes.
So, and anytime you have billions of data at your fingertips of other people's information, to where you can assume the identity of another person and take for
Mm-hmm.
yourself. It's just a matter of having enough imagination to figure it out, or find somebody to help you figure it out. So
Yeah.
that's where we're headed.
Yeah, you're probably right, and I know you're not in the justice law side of it, but how do you feel about mandatory minimums?
I've been asked that question before in grad school too. I had to do a paper on it. I think that, and it's hard because there's so much movement in the criminal justice system, but I don't have a strong opinion on it one way or the other, because I think every situation's different. So I'm
And
never
it
going to
is.
say all or none, because I think when you get into that mindset, then you back yourself in a corner.
And that's
by
pretty
saying
much
that.
where it is right now. It's all or none on certain charges. And,
So,
yeah.
I think anything that has to do with violent offenses or serious aggravated violent offenses, I think that you should definitely take a second look. But
I would agree.
so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything you'd like to maybe tell the public?
Brenda's doing a great job. I appreciate what she does, and
Well,
it's a
I'm just
valuable
trying to
resource.
educate
Yeah.
the public, and I really appreciate your service as a cop,
Thank
and even those that are incarcerated, believe it or not, do appreciate it. There's some that don't,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of people that do, and it's a tough job. I was raised, my dad was in the military, so it's not the same, but it's still the same in a lot of things. And without the military, without our police, and without even the justice system, our world would be very bad.
I will say one thing. I would, and people that have challenged law enforcement's intentions. There's ride-along programs out there. Anybody can go on a ride-along program, and you
That's
can
good
sign
to
up.
know.
You can sign up and go through. You can go ride with Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri. And I challenge anybody to go ride in one of the inner city districts for an evening shift from like 3 to 11. And then
That's a
I
great
guarantee you that if you have questions about what it's like to be a cop, I challenge you to do that, and it will completely change your perspective.
I think that's an awesome idea.
So,
Well, good. Everybody go get on a ride-along.
Mhm.
Thank you, Travis. Thank you
Right.
for coming. I appreciate your time. And if you guys need anything, contact me. I can give you Travis's info if you have any questions. And it's great seeing everybody again. Thanks.
thank you.